Chapter 9. Time stops. "Where is it?" shouted Annie. The front of the Titanic sank deeper into the sea. Jack and Annie fell forward. They grabbed the railing and held on for their lives. "Maybe the treehouse fell into the ocean," shouted Jack. A great roar started coming from the ship. Jack imagined everything crashing forward, all the furniture, dishes, bicycles, the grand clock on the staircase. He looked down. A giant wave of water rolled over a lower deck. Jack imagined water flooding the third-class corridor, the card room, and the grand staircase. He closed his eyes, waiting to be washed away. "Earth! Earth!" The barking came from a distance. "Teddy!" cried Annie. Jack had forgotten all about the little dog. Holding on to the railing, he used one hand to pull off his knapsack. Teddy wasn't there. There was more frantic barking. "Where's Teddy?" cried Jack. "He's calling us," shouted Annie. "We can't look for him," shouted Jack. "We fall off the ship." Teddy barked and barked. "He's close by," said Annie. She held on to the railing and moved slowly down the steep deck. "Annie!" cried Jack. Suddenly, the lights on the Titanic went out. The world was pitch dark. Jack couldn't see Annie at all. "Annie!" he shouted. He tried to move down the deck too, but the ship tilted again. Jack slipped and fell. He roared until he crashed into a smokestack. "Jack!" cried Annie. "Here! Here!" Teddy kept barking. The back of the Titanic was rising out of the ocean. The front of the ship was going down. Jack tried to go around the smokestack without falling. In the dark, he could barely see the treehouse. It was stuck between a smokestack and the railing. It was lying on its side. Annie and Teddy were looking out the window. "Teddy's barking led me here," cried Annie. "Hurry, Jack!" Jack crawled around the smokestack. He held out his hand. Annie grabbed it. She pulled him into the treehouse. Teddy licked his face. "I wish we could go home," shouted Annie, pointing at the Pennsylvania book. Jack heard a loud crack. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still, absolutely still. Chapter 10. A Touch of Magic. "Oh man," whispered Jack. He was lying on the floor of the treehouse. He was wearing his pajama and rain poncho again. "You okay?" Annie asked. "Yeah, okay." "Well, you?" said Jack. "My heart's beating really fast," said Annie. "Mine too," said Jack. He thought of the Titanic sinking into the cold black sea. His eyes filled with tears. "It was terrible," he said. Annie nodded. Jack could see tears on her cheeks. Teddy licked Jack's face. "Hey," said Jack, "how did you get out of my knapsack?" Teddy whined. Jack and Annie stroked his furry head and ears. "I think he has a touch of magic," said Annie. Slowly Jack sat up. "He saved our lives," he said. "And now we have the first gift to break the spell he's under," said Annie. She turned on her flashlight. She shined it on the silver pocket watch that hung from her neck. "Lucy's gift," she said. The watch had stopped. The hands were at 2:20. Jack was silent. Then he sighed. "That's exactly when the ship went down," he said. Annie looked at him. "I guess that's when time stopped for the Titanic," she said. Jack nodded. Annie put a pocket watch on top of Morgan's note. "A gift from a ship lost at sea," she said softly. They were both quiet. Then Jack took off his glasses and wiped the tears from his eyes. Annie stood up. She took a deep breath. "I'm ready to go," she said. "Let's put Teddy in your pack and take him home with us." She shined her flashlight around the treehouse. "Teddy!" she said. There was no sign of the little dog. "He's not here," said Annie. "What are you talking about?" said Jack. "We're just patting him." "He's up to his magic tricks again," said Annie. She sighed. "We'll have to go home without him." "But what happened to him?" said Jack. "I don't know," said Annie, "but I have a feeling we'll see him again soon." She started down the rope ladder. Jack looked around the treehouse one last time. "Teddy!" he said, but the treehouse was quiet. Jack pulled on his backpack and climbed down the rope ladder. Annie was waiting for him. Without a word, Jack took her hand. The rain had stopped, but water still dripped from the trees. Stars glittered overhead in the clear sky. Silently, Jack and Annie left the Flat Creek woods. They walked up the dark street to their house and climbed the steps to their porch. Before they went inside, they looked out again at the night. "Time might have stopped for the Titanic," Jack said, "but books and memories keep the Titanic alive, don't they? It's a true story, but it's also like a myth now." "Yeah," said Annie, "and every time the story's told, we wish it had a different ending." Jack nodded. That was exactly how he felt. Staring at the starry sky, he shuddered at the memory of the sinking ship. He knew that he and Annie were lucky. They had come home. "Good night, Titanic," he said softly. "Goodbye." Then he and Annie slipped quietly into their house, where it was cozy and dry and very safe. More facts for you and Jack. The Titanic hit the iceberg in the North Atlantic, approximately 400 miles off the coast of Newfoundland. The Titanic was considered unsinkable because she was built with huge watertight doors to contain any possible leaks. However, when the ship hit the iceberg, 6 watertight compartments quickly filled up with water, dooming the ship. The signal SOS was chosen as an international distress call because of the simplicity of the 3 letters in Morse code: 3 dots, 3 dashes, and 3 dots. No one knows for certain exactly how long the musicians played on the Titanic, but legend says they played until the ship went down, and their last song was the hymn Nearer, My God, to Thee. More than 1,500 people perished in the Titanic disaster, while 705 people escaped in lifeboats and were eventually rescued by a ship named the Carpathia. After sinking of the Titanic, laws were changed so that every ship was required to have enough lifeboats to carry all its passengers. Also, the International Ice Patrol was formed, so the ships would have warning about ice conditions. In 1985, a scientist named Dr. Robert Ballard discovered the undersea wreck of the Titanic. The end.